Hey guys, today we're going to be making a simple snowman Christmas tree ornament on the lathe using some scrap wood. We're going to use probably just 4 tools. We use rough and gouge, 2 skews, and a parting tool. At the end we might even burn the base with the torch, we'll see. So, we have 4 blanks that are about 2 by 2 and maybe 8 or 10 inches long. The best wood to use with this is a closed grain wood. I wouldn't use an oak or pine or something really open grain. It would tear out very easily. So just any type of wood, fairly closed grain. Hard maple is great, so I would go ahead and try to find some of that if you can. So what I try to do, I pre-cut the ends so I know where the center is, and I'll tap the spur center. And you don't necessarily always have to, but it's just a good habit to get into. Don't ever tap that spur center in on the bed of the lathe. The cast iron tends to crack pretty easily. All right, move the tailstock up, get it centered, lock it. We'll tighten this up a little bit. Now this is fairly soft wood that I'm using, but normally I push a little sawdust up against the base of the tailstock, and especially on hardwoods, it won't go in very far. So I just watch, and when the tailstock starts moving away from the sawdust, I know I've got it pretty tight. Just give it a little wiggle, make sure nice and snug. You don't feel anything wobbling around. We'll get the tailstock as close as possible here. Just get it about the mid-level, about the midline. Okay. So we'll start this off fairly slow, like under 1,000 RPM somewhere, and we'll round this thing out. As you start to get this round, you can go a little faster and keep that tool rest close. You hear the sound difference, you can tell it's starting to get round. At this point, I'm not too horribly concerned about the finish. We're just trying to get it round. So let's swap over. Sometimes I use the parting tool to kind of get everything marked out, kind of where I want everything. Another good habit to get into, whatever the smallest part of your turning is, you want that to be to your right or towards the tailstock, or the thinnest part, I should say. All right, so I'll top the Christmas tree here, and I'll have a base over here. This isn't going to be very large. Remember, it's just an ornament. In this area somewhere will be the base of it, and this piece of wood is way larger than we need. We'll do maybe a little decorative base. So we're going to cut it off here. That's going to be the top, and we will start bringing this back in to a basic shape. Now I always try to push downhill. By that I mean start at the wide diameter and go to the narrow diameter. It tends to chip out a lot less. Okay, that'll get us close. Switch to the skew. I always randomly check this. It's just kind of a good safety measure to make sure we're still tight, especially if you hear that vibrating. All right. Now, at this point, you can kind of do whatever you want. You could go straight in with the parting tool at regular increments. I choose not to. Turn it up a little bit. We're getting close to about 2,500 RPM right now. All right, so let's just kind of start cutting in. So I cut in with the tip. Tip of the skew. Try using a little smaller one. And if you wanted to, you could mark this out with a pencil using a set of calipers. I'm just eyeballing it. This is a Christmas tree ornament. It should be something that's done fairly quickly. Again, I'm just using the skew, cutting kind of straight in. Okay, this is where we can kind of cut whatever type of base we want here. And finish off the top however we like as well. I'm going to narrow up the trunk of this tree a little bit. I'm going to go all the way down. And I'm going to narrow up the base a little bit. Now the base, I intentionally undercut it a little bit. You don't want it to be domed on the bottom. It doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit. Now I do think this is probably a little bit large for a base, so we'll cut that down a little bit. We'll go ahead, make this a little smaller as well. All right, so at this point we're getting pretty close. I think just to make the base look different from the top of the tree, we are going to go ahead and burn that. And we could sand all of these individually. I might if I have some sandpaper close here. Kind of go over this a little bit. Anytime you're sanding on here, you want to make sure this tool rest is either taken away or pulled way back. Just keep that sandpaper moving. I always hold the sandpaper on the bottom side. So it pulls it out, it's going to go that way. You shouldn't wrap your fingers in here or anything like that. It's a little unsafe. Just soften that up a little bit. If you really feel like it, burnish it a little. Again, we're not going to go too crazy on this. All right, I think that's probably good enough for us. I would do at this point, make sure we have all the sawdust away. And you could put a wax on here, paint it, finish it right on here if you'd like. So I'm just gonna lightly go at this a little bit. All right, there's a little Christmas tree. If we were doing this for a project to give away, we could sand it a lot more. There is a little bit of tear out, but I'm not too horribly worried about it right now. All right, let's go ahead and cut this off. Cut that down a little lower. Tip smaller. All right. Now the tip was really small, just snap it off. We can go ahead and I'll bring this over, we'll cut this base off with the bandsaw or a scroll saw or something like that. You could probably even pare it off with a little knife. All right, we got a little eyelet. Drill a hole in the top. Probably look better with a brass eyelet, something a little smaller, but this is all we have here, so that's what we're using. Little piece of leather string, there you go. Super easy project.